Coming up on show 782, Polestar announced the first cities in the US to get their new retail stores. Sorry, Polestar Spaces. Stick around and I'll tell you more. Plus on the show today, the Ford Mustang Mach-E charging times, VW setting the stage for an all-electric transporter, how Ferrari don't intend to make an all-electric car anytime soon, and could an electric bicycle solve your commuting problems? Well, we'll find out on the show today. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. In fact, wherever you're listening around the world, welcome to EV News Daily. Here is the news for Monday, 18th of May. My name is Martin Lee, and I go through every EV story so you don't have to. Thank you, as always, to our patrons of the programme, and thank you to any patron at any time that decides to increase their support, which is just amazing. People like Philip. Today, Philip Troutman has become an executive producer, has been supporting this podcast for a very long time, and now has decided to add his name to the list of people at the end of the show notes and read out every Sunday as well. Philip, thank you so much. Check out what Patreon's all about if you're interested in supporting this podcast as we spread the word about EVs, hopefully spreading the word far and wide. Patreon is patreon.com/EV News Daily. Polestar is going to begin selling its all-electric performance cars in its first set of retail stores. Sorry, Polestar Spaces, I'll have you know they're called. But where are they going to be? Where? Well, if you're in New York, Los Angeles and the Bay Area, then you'll be in luck. In the first half of 2021, they're going to have new stores. Polestar Spaces in Boston, Denver, Texas, DC and Florida. According to Electrek today, the $60,000 Polestar 2 has 408 horsepower, 487 pound-feet of torque. It's all-wheel drive. It's got a 78 kilowatt-hour battery pack, and it is expected to offer an estimated 275 miles of range on the European test cycle. So on the more realistic US EPA test, maybe that'll come down a little bit. But look, 78 kilowatt-hour battery pack, even if that is gross, so you're getting a little bit less than that in real life, then it's all good stuff. The Polestar looks amazing. The technology's fantastic. The interior, I think, looks like a nice combination of Swedish minimalism, but without going the whole hog that Tesla has gone with the single screen, which is obviously fine, not for everybody. And I think Polestar have got a nice balance. I think their industrial design is really nice. The exterior of the just like the Volvo cars as well, but Volvo and Polestar, I just think their design studio is on fire at the moment. Beautiful car. If I had $60,000, it would certainly be a potential car for me. But what do you think about the new Polestar and about their plan not to sell it through Volvo dealerships? Will that put people off? Do you think there are people in the US who would go, oh, what's this electric car? It's Polestar. Okay, are they new? What are they? Whereas if it was in a Volvo dealership, if it was the Volvo Polestar, maybe, I'm just suggesting, perhaps that would give people more confidence to buy an EV, or do they not need it? I mean, people don't need it with a brand new company like Tesla, and they only sell their cars online. Although, of course, they do have plenty of retail stores and galleries, and so the Polestar spaces, which will be, I'm sure, very zen, very Swedish, very chilled out places, very well designed, where you can just go along and experience the Polestar. I'm sure that they're going to be just as great as Teslas are. The great thing about the way that Tesla embrace their customers is they'll put them inside shopping centres, or they'll have them in places where there's high footfall, and they'll open the doors and let everyone just kind of have a climb around, and the kids jumping on the seats and all that. I've never seen anybody in a one of those Tesla stores or any of those spaces that Tesla has saying, oh, look, do you mind not doing that? They're always really embracing of people's natural curiosity, even if it means jabbing at the screen and generally giving a good once-over, I'll say. Okay, moving on. And if you are online over the next couple of days, I do recommend checking out Bjorn Neeland's channel, or Tesla Bjorn, who he is otherwise known as on YouTube. He's got himself a Porsche Taycan, and he's doing some range tests. And I like Bjorn's stuff. He's a super nerd. He's not for everyone. He does get really into the numbers of stuff. He's got himself a Taycan 4S. And so that's the baby one, if I can call an £80,000 car the baby one. How far's he gone in it? Because we know that the EPA range for the different Taycans is, plus minus floating around 200 miles. Well, Bjorn did 273 miles on his real-world range test. That's 440 kilometres. He drove 427 kilometres, so he started at home with a full battery and a warm battery as well. He kept it in the garage overnight with the heating on, the garage heating. So the battery pack was warm. He drove 427 kilometres in the Taycan, and it averaged 173 watt-hours per kilometre. Now, in Norway at the moment, it is springtime, and he did mention the blue skies, but it's still 11 degrees outside, which is a little bit cool for lithium-ion batteries, although the battery in the Porsche, with its liquid, thermally managed battery pack, it'll keep it nice and cool or nice and warm if it needs to. On the display, when I caught that in the video, it was always around 28 or 30 degrees Celsius, so the battery pack is being kept in a nice working range. What he worked out was, from the 79.2 kilowatt hour battery pack, he found 76 usable, and that's more than when the car was first put on sale. I think when the car was first put on sale, I think Porsche were conservative with how much range you got to use, how much of the pack you got to use. Whereas of the 79.2, which is the gross, that's how much battery pack is potentially able to be used. 96% of it is now available to use. And I don't think there's too much at the top, because he mentions when the battery is full, there's no regen. And there are cars like the Audi e-tron that have a big buffer at the top, where even when the battery says 100% and you go downhill, it'll still be generating from regen. And so this in the Taycan used to do that, but when it got to 100%, this one that he drove didn't do it. So I wonder if they've made the top buffer smaller. So, 100 is nearer to 100, if I'm making any sense. The mileage of, I think in Europe, does it do something like 200 and, I forget what the WLTP is, but he easily did more. That was at 90 kilometers an hour. He also did a 120 kilometer range test, which is a bit more realistic for those doing motorway or autobahn journeys. Now, he did that at 223 watt-hours per kilometre, so it does get a little bit thirsty, certainly more thirsty than a Tesla. That would get you about 212 miles if you chose to drive faster. What did I notice in the video? Well, the owner who he had borrowed it off had definitely spec'd the bigger wheels, because as standard you get 19-inch aero wheels on the 4S, and these look like the 20-inch turbos or turbo aero wheels, so that wouldn't mean more than a few miles difference, but you could certainly get more range out of it. And of course, this is the smaller battery, so the way that Porsche do it is you can spec the car that you want and then just change the battery size. So you can pay another, in the UK, it's about 4,600, I think, for the what they call Performance Battery Plus, and that gives you 93.4 kilowatt hours. And I would be tempted, if I was spending 80 grand on a car, I would tick the option, because you can get the 4S, the baby one, with the bigger battery. You get any of the Porsches with a bigger battery. So I would have, I haven't got 80,000 to spend, but if I was, you know what? As a percentage of the total cost of the car, to spend another 4.5 grand on the bigger battery, I just think range is king. Range, every day of the week, if you possibly can. Check it out. Interesting set of videos. I'm sure he's going to make some more. Not sure he'll do the 1,000-kilometer challenge, but we'll wait and see. Talking of charging, and the Mustang Mach-E, which is coming out hopefully by the end of the year, definitely 2021. Ford said that the charging speed is 150 kilowatts. You can add 61 miles of range in 10 minutes. The 150 kilowatt charge speed, if you can find an Electrify America DC fast charging station, says Motor Authority. While that pace is comparable to Audi e-trons, Jaguar I-Paces, Tesla's latest V3 superchargers are not everywhere, but they are gradually being rolled out, and they, of course, can deliver 250 kilowatts or 1,000 miles an hour. But again, not all Teslas can take that kind of speed, so it's interesting to see Ford give us an update on the charging speed for that. Volkswagen are next, and they're in the process of transforming their ID.Buzz concept car, which was unveiled 2-3 years ago now at the Detroit Auto Show, into a production model. That will be the really cool retro people carrier / camper. If they ever decide to actually bring it to market, it'll be a great car, really popular, catering to van drivers who want to go electric. But in the meantime, they have got plans, and with the Transporter, that's going fully electric, which again is just great news for so many companies that want a van like the Transporter. They're actually doing it as a joint venture with the German tuning company ABT, says Autoblog. The e-Transporter is the same model as the diesel-powered one. However, there's a little emblem on the grille which says it's an EV. Haven't seen interior pictures yet, but we know that the e-Transporter will start at £42,000, about $51,000. Yeah, that's a lot more expensive than the diesel one, which is about $28,000 or $33,000. How far will it go? Not that far. 82 miles on a charge. That's because the battery is 37.3 kilowatt hours. And that's gross. It's like 32 net, I think. Yes. My little city car, the Renault Zoe, has got 25% more battery for a very, very small little city car, and this is a van, but never mind. Charging is 7.2 kilowatt on-board charger. It'll do 50 kilowatts rapid charging on DC fast charging in about 45 minutes. You could stop on your lunch break if you're doing deliveries and top up. However, that's not the biggest battery in the world. Hopefully when their EV proper comes out, an ID based on the MEB platform, that's the one that'll have a decent sized battery. But in the meantime, anybody that's needing a Transporter that doesn't do more than 80 miles a day might want to consider this. Hey, here's some bad news. This podcast is, I must admit, normally full of really positive, optimistic, brilliant, forward-thinking news. It's not that I go out looking only for good news, but there's just no bad news in the EV community. I mean, it's just all the stories are brilliant about fantastic things that are coming soon or on the road now. This one, though, is a bit of a shame. Jaguar have cancelled the I-Pace Etrophy. They axed the I-Pace Trophy Series, which was a support series to Formula E, announcing it today that the single-make all-electric series, which has followed Formula E around the planet for the last year and a half, is no more, according to eRacing 365. Launched in 2018 using road-going I-Paces for customers, customer cars and privateers. However, they targeted 20 cars on the grid, never got that. They averaged about 12 in the first season, and season 2, what was that, November that started? Blimey, seems a million miles away now, but back in Diriyah, and that had 9 cars on the grid, and what with the COVID situation, they've called time on it. Whether it even returns when Formula E is back. I think Formula E is looking at July for a resumption of some races. Not sure whether it will happen in London as planned, as the racetrack is currently a temporary hospital, but fingers crossed. You never know. Fingers crossed. Let's talk Ferrari next. Now, Ferrari has poured some more cold water on the idea of a pure electric supercar from Ferrari. Why? They claim current battery technology is just not good enough. And that's a weird thing to say because it blatantly is. Maybe the battery technology they've got in their locker isn't good enough, or maybe that they can get hold of isn't good enough. But there's some good tech out there, and we'll come on to that. The statement that they can't get good enough technology for it to be a fire-breathing Ferrari does come off the back of plenty of their rivals saying, we're making a full electric car. Says caradvice.com.au. In an interview with Autocar, Ferrari's chief marketing and commercial officer, Enrico Galliera, said that suitable battery tech is at least 5 years away. I quote, "We firmly believe that battery technology is not yet developed enough to meet the needs of a supercar in the next 5 years. We do not believe the technology will be able to meet the needs of a Ferrari," end quote. Well, Yesterday on the podcast, we told you about the Swedish brand Koenigsegg with their new Gamera, their Mega GT. It has about 1,270 kilowatts of power. Lotus are developing the Evija with 1,470 kilowatts of power. And of course, there's the Rimac C2, or Concept 2. So, maybe Ferrari just aren't able to get the tech that they need. Obviously, a company like Koenigsegg, like I mentioned, they are a customer of Rimac. For instance, Rimac have been doing this a long time. Rimac have been doing 800-volt architecture forever. Obviously, Porsche were the first road-going ones, and so they get all the attention. But Rimac have had 800-volt systems since something like 2012. They've been doing this at a very high level for a very long time. But Ferrari say, it's still 5 years away. I would have more respect for Ferrari. And, you know, say what you want about a company that will sell you a lunchbox and a keyring as long as it's got the logo on. And so if they were just honest, I love companies that just, there's no BS. I would love Ferrari to go, you know what, our customers don't want the noise. The people who spend money on a Ferrari want and all that drama. It's fine. I wouldn't respect you any less. I would respect you less if you say, oh, the technology is 5 years away. We can't possibly do a fast electric car. And unfortunately, when Tesla do bring out the Roadster, which is a little bit delayed at the moment, the Roadster is 2022, I think anyway. When that happens, and it's going to be crazy specs, because we know that Elon will want it with crazy specs, then there's just nowhere to hide. And there's no point putting these 5-year time limits on saying, oh, you can't build a quick electric car for at least 5 years. Yeah. All right, let's finish off at the other end of the spectrum. You won't need Ferrari or Porsche budget to buy an e-bike. But you might need a bit of money, actually, because demand has rocketed and prices are definitely firming up of e-bikes. You can't get an e-bike bargain at the moment. And it's how many people are choosing to get to work after lockdown. Well, e-bikes enable riders to avoid car use and the close contact of public transport. How safe and affordable and healthy are they, asks the Guardian newspaper. Well, many in the cycling world are wondering if this could be the moment when e-bikes, which are very popular in some countries. I saw Dan Caesar, who is one of the super brains behind the Fully Charged YouTube channel. Obviously, Robert is the face of it, but Dan does a lot of the wheeling and dealing. Massively insulted his proper role there, but I saw him tweeting at some point recently about bikes in the Netherlands being like 40% of all bicycles sold are e-bikes. Well, they could be taking off around the world now. The biggest barrier is that many people feel unsafe on roads. In places like the Netherlands and Denmark, riders of e-bikes, riders of any bicycle, enjoy the fruits of decades of work to make roads cycle safe. And now many countries are looking at the e-bikes as a way of getting people off public transport, increasing health. Obesity is a huge problem, and the European Cycling Federation say that Europe-wide e-bike sales grew 22% year on year in 2019, and they're growing much faster this year. And for many people, they make cycling a possibility, because actually if you've got to get to work and it's a 20-minute, 30-minute ride, you're going to get to work. If you want to do that in a reasonable time, you've got to put some effort in, so you're going to get to work hot and sweaty and stinky. And if you've got changing facilities at your workplace, that's fine. But if you haven't, you can't turn up dressed for work like that. But an e-bike just provides that little bit of extra support, the power, up hills, and just it means that even if you're having to pedal or pedal assisted, that you do it in a much more civilized way, if you like. And of course, some e-bikes you can just not pedal and it'll be totally powered. Different countries have different regulations about how fast they are legally allowed to travel, but some of them will start at about £400 or £500. Some of them are £3,000. Talking of Fully Charged, by the way, that is the name of a big bike shop in London. I think London's biggest electric bike retailer now as well. So I'm sure they could answer your questions. I've never dealt with them, so I can't kind of recommend them personally, but I've seen them YouTube videos and they seem like really nice people. And what do you think about e-bikes? Would you swap your commute onto an e-bike? I'd really like to know. Maybe it's a future question of the week, possibly, but you can email me anytime about anything. And this week's question of the week is all about the news about Dyson. After spending £500 million to make their EV, decided to knock the project on the head because they couldn't sell it for less than 150 grand, and they didn't want to make a car that was so exclusive. But should Dyson have continued and just sold the car at a high price, and then the next one could have been cheaper? Or should we always be aiming to make EVs realistic? What's wrong with making an expensive car for those that can afford it? Tell me your thoughts about the Dyson story, and I'll read them out on Sunday's show. My email address is hello@evnewsdaily.com, or you can leave a comment on the YouTube show. Thank you very much to all 228 patrons of this podcast. You do indeed make this show happen, and I'm eternally grateful for all of your support. My premium partners are Phil Roberts of Electric Future, Brad Crosby, Avid Technology, Brightsmith Group for Clean Tech Talent, Porsche of the Village, Cincinnati, and Audi of Cincinnati East. If you can leave a little review on Apple Podcast, it really helps grow the show. Have a wonderful day. I'll catch you tomorrow, and do remember, there is no such thing as a self-charging hybrid.